Bad John. Every morning at the mine you could see him arrive. He stood 6'6" and weighed 245s, kind of broad at the shoulder and narrow at the hip, and everybody knew you didn't give no lip to Big John. Big John, Big John, Big Bad John. Nobody seemed to know where John called home. He just drifted into town and stayed all alone. He didn't say much, he's kind of quiet and shy, and if you spoke at all, you just said hi to Big John. Some people say he came from New Orleans, where he got in a fight over a Cajun queen, and a crashing blow from a huge right hand sent a Louisiana fella to the promised land. Big John. Big John, Big John, Big Bad John. Then came the day at the bottom of the mine when a timber cracked and men started crying. Miners are praying and hearts beat fast. Everybody thought that they'd breathe their last except John. Through the dust and the smoke of this man-made hell walked a giant of a man that the miners knew well, grabbed a sagging timber and gave out with a groan. And like a giant oak tree, he just stood there alone, Big John. Big John, Big John, Big Bad John.
Well, I was born in Uppsala, Minnesota, a little town up by Little Falls, and lived there only a couple years, and then I moved to Hector, Minnesota, which is out in West Central. But then I went, from there I went to high school at Hector, and I participated in baseball and football and in choir and in the plays and so on. After high school, I went to St. Olaf College in Northfield for 2 years, transferred to the University of Minnesota, where I graduated in 1963, and went out on my first job at teaching down at Slayton, Minnesota.
Big John, Big John, Big Bad John.
Coaching courses set up, so we had the head coach of every sport at the University of Minnesota. For example, I had Murray Warmouth was my instructor in the football coaching. And John Mariucci was in hockey, and Dick Siebert in baseball. All the old greats that were, of course, they were all there at that time. And then I did my student teaching at Minneapolis Roosevelt, and at that time I did it in the spring. So I coached baseball with Bob Johnson, who became later called Badger Bob. He was the head hockey coach at Wisconsin for many years. And then as I was ready to graduate, I had interviews at several different places, but one of them was down at Slayton, Minnesota, which is in the southwestern corner of the state. And I was down there for the interview, and the same day I was there, I was offered a contract. But there I coached. I was the head baseball coach in the spring. I coached junior high basketball, 8th grade basketball, and then I was the assistant football coach my first 2 years, and then I became the head football coach my third year there. I was there 5 years. In 1968, I got a call from George Larson, and came up, and we hit it off really well. And so I started coaching that fall in 1968 here at Cambridge. I was the line coach, assistant coach in football, and I was also the head baseball coach, which head baseball coach. For 10 years, I was the head baseball coach. In the 15 years after that, I had 3 daughters, and softball job opened up, and so George kind of said, why don't you take the softball job and get a chance to coach your own girls and see them play then? And I did that, and it was a great experience. I coached till I retired then. In 1999, I coached softball for 15 years. I was the head softball. When I moved here to Cambridge, then I coached until 1994, which was a total coaching of football. I coached a total of 31 years then in my career.
Big John.
In the late 60s, we played in the state baseball tournament when I was at Slayton. I think it was 67. And then We played in softball in the mid '80s. I think '86 it was. We played in the state tournament, and that was obviously a very special time for us. And then, of course, we had in the mid '80s also '86, '87, '87, '88. We won the football state championship those years too. We did play a couple other years in the state tournament too. But the years that you remember, of course, the most, you remember all of the ones you remember the most are the ones when you come out on the winning end of it. So some of the awards I've gotten over the years, I got the Butch Nash Assistant Coach of the Year award. One year I coached in the high school All-Star football game that same year. And a couple of years after that, I got the Minnesota Assistant Coach of the Year award, and then just more recently, I was inducted into the Minnesota Football Coaches Association Hall of Fame, which was, certainly a great memory and a great honor.
Big John, Big John, Big Bad John.
People that come to my mind first as far as thank yous for how my life and my career has gone would certainly be my mom and dad. My late wife Diana, those people were very important in my life and supported me so much. And then I also think of my my two high school coaches, Bob Haig and Wayne Dietz. Both of them are Hall of Famers as well. And my two probably greatest mentors that I've had in my coaching career have been George Larson and Ron Stolsky. I taught with Lois Terrain for many years, who's in the same group here now, and was a wonderful friend and a wonderful colleague. My other Phi-Ed teaching, Scott Cholin, I want to remember him, and Christy Phobie, and Neil Jennison, Bill Schmaker, Dean Allen, the late Dean Allen, who was probably my best friend that I had at that time. Dick Humphrey, Mark Solberg, our president AD, Lowell Schweigert. In softball, I had Julie Seibert, Julie Pulcher Seibert. Marshall Ledeen was very important. And in baseball, Bill Schmaker was my coach. Gary Christofferson, who's gone from us now. Those were guys that coached with me. Bob Salo, Bill Cast. But the most important people I should be thanking of all are the athletes. I would like to say a special thank you to every athlete that I ever coached. They were special people.
Big John, Big John, Big Bad John.